Morning. A quick announcement. This is going to be televised live and streamed. While the program is taking place, please be silent as a mouse. Did you guys get that? We're broadcast live on several different platforms. We're going to have a lot of fun today. If you feel the need to clap or shout, that's fine. And we're going to start this event. Let me come on up on stage and say a special good morning to each and every one of you. Good morning and welcome to the SoCal Women's Conference as we celebrate our 20th anniversary of service to our community. Today's conference, like I said, is in person. It's live. And in today's world, it's virtual. I'm your DJ. Jeff Gill, but I couldn't do it without this man right here, internationally known DJ Invisible Man. So he's going to be assisting me today. You got two DJs. We're doing it for you. Our MC today that I'm about to bring up is Wendy Birch. Wendy Birch, television journalist, professional writer, and motivational speaker. And it is my pleasure to invite her to the stage at this time. Prior to joining KTLA, Wendy worked with other television stations and E! Entertainment News. She has received numerous awards and honors, including six Emmy Awards. Wow. Aside from her work in front of the camera, Wendy Birch is also a professional media trainer to some of the world's top athletes. Additionally, Wendy is outspoken as an advocate for women struggling with fertility issues. She graduated from Brigham Young University. Please join me and give a big welcome to your MC for today's event, Wendy Birch.
Working. Oh, there you go. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me now? Nice to see you. I wanted to let you all know that we are COVID compliant here backstage. I've got my mask. How many of you have saved an enormous amount of money on lipstick over the last 18 months? Seriously. It's the only bright side I've seen to all of this. Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Wendy, and I'm so happy to be here today. You know, I've always heard about this conference. I've always wanted to attend it. Can you believe it? 20 years. How many 20-year attendees do we have out there? Any hands? Some of you were just youngins. Set that table back there. I know that you were around 20 years ago. Yeah. Wonderful having you all here. And what we're excited about, last year, of course, we still had the conference, but we had to do it all virtual. This year, we're in the hybrid world. How many of you feel like that word hybrid a few too many times? You feeling it? Yeah, I know. I think this has been a couple of years of just pivot. We pivot again. And we're happy though to welcome. Is this my live camera to the world? Hi there. Hi everybody from your home. How you doing? I can see you. You're in your bathrobe. And that is totally 100% okay. We've all kind of come into this world where we now have these virtual meetings, and I like to call it the electronic slide. You know, we've all kind of slid into it. It's like the electric slide. Some people really get it, and some people are just a little beat behind. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like that wedding. You know that there's always going to be one person, and I'm going to keep it real. It's the white guy with the dad bod that just can't quite get the back part. You know, they can't quite. Just a little off, but they're there anyway. So don't worry. If you're having any technical issues, we're going to go through that in just a moment. How's Lena Kennedy? Has anybody seen her? That woman has out rested for 20 years. How's she doing? Can we give it up for Lena? Lena is the woman behind this gadget. You'll be hearing more from her a little bit later. You know, we talk about the pandemic. Let's go back to 2020, spring of 2020. We're all like, you know what? By the time we get to the end of the summer, everything's going to be fine. And then I remember we're all saying, by the time we get to the new year, 2021, everything's going to be fine. It is nearly damn December. Sorry, Pastor. And here we all are. But we're getting closer. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? We're getting closer. And that's why I think the theme of this year's Women's Conference is so appropriate. It's your season. That's what we're talking about. This is our season. We're coming into it, and it is a bright, bold, beautiful, sunny Southern California season. So we're very excited about that. So it's a perfect theme. It is a perfect theme. And one of the things that I love too is that we'll be speaking so much about women's health specifically. Never before, I think, in our lifetimes have we felt more connected and more aware of just how important our health is. Isn't that true? Didn't the pandemic just make us take stock in who we are and how we're treating our bodies? So today's just going to be a wonderfully fun and informative day, and we're so happy that you're all here to be a part of it. I am very excited to introduce the next person who will be giving us our invitation and our prayer to begin things today in the right tone. It is Pastor Jean Birch. I just met her backstage. Yes, B-U-R-C-H. I believe we could be cousins. We're going to look deeply into that. We're both filling out a 23andMe profile even as we speak. So we're getting deep into that. But if I did have a cousin, I would want it to be Pastor Jean Birch. Guess what? She has served as the senior pastor of the Community Bible Church Pasadena for 20 years as well. And that is a tremendous job. And she's done such fantastic work during that time. During that time, she has provided, and their group has provided, seminary and a bachelor's from Biola University of Organizational Leadership. We could all use a little more organizational leadership in our life. Let's consult Pastor. She's won numerous awards and many community recognitions. Please, without further ado, welcome my cousin, Pastor Jean Birch, to the stage. Let's give her a warm round of applause. Come on, cousin.
Thank you, cousin Wendy. And good morning to all of you. It is a beautiful day, Pasadena, California. And Lord, for that we give you praise. Let us pray. Lord, we give you praise today for being here. For it is in the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible that it states in verse 4 of the third chapter, there is a time to laugh, a time to weep, a time to mourn, and a time to celebrate. And Lord, over the past couple of years, as we have navigated our way through interruption and disruption, through pain and sorrow, there may have been times when we found ourselves laughing to keep from weeping and mourning while we continue to wait with anticipation for the time of celebration. So Lord, today we thank you for this event, which offers us a time to celebrate each other, to celebrate 20 years, to celebrate, for we are here both in person and online. It is an opportunity to expand our awareness of life and ourselves, of healing and of hope. So today we thank you for the opportunity to gain knowledge and wisdom, for good mental health and physical wellness. And today I pray that the knowledge that we gain today will inspire us to do what we can to honor you, O God, as we honor one another. We pray for blessings upon every speaker, our meal, and continued blessings upon our founder, Lena Kennedy. We pray that you will fill each of us with your love and your joy. And now, O God, when we leave this place, and this day is over, and we face tomorrow, may truth be our guiding force as we put our trust in you. And all of these things we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Jean. Cousin Jean. Fantastic. Wait a minute. I'll let you just yet. I want you to all see the family resemblance. Can I get a little music, DJ? Can I get a little music? Because right here, I want you all to look closer. Okay, let's take a walk. Ready? You can sit. Everyone sit. Come on, Jean. Come on, Pastor. Oh, yeah. And this is what you strike me straight.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Float around. And then we work back. And that's the important part. You gotta have I like this. We are definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, cheeseburgers. Thanks, Gene. I couldn't resist. That was just too much fun. Okay, I'm gonna hand this one back to my magic microphone man. Hi. I'm back. I might do a few things off script. Is that okay? All okay with that? All right. Keep things going. All right. This is the point where I do a little housekeeping. No, that's ironic because if you knew me, I don't do housekeeping. But this is the electronic kind of housekeeping. So I'm talking to our audience at home. I see you. You're in your soft pants, as I like to call them. How many have been wearing soft pants for most of the time of the pandemic? Yeah, now we're back in hard pants. You know, they're just hard. They're hard to get on. They feel hard. I miss my soft pants. We want to let everyone know how this is all going to work. So I have a few notes about how it's exactly working for you, and I don't want to lose my notes. Okay. This is what's happening. For you guys watching at home, you can see us, but we cannot see you. Okay? You can hear us, but we don't want to hear you. So you're supposed to keep your microphone on mute. Okay? Unless you want us to hear all the conversations, but you probably don't. So make sure that you keep yourself on mute. Also, if you have questions, there's an online chat room that you can type in your questions, and I'll be monitoring those questions. And at the appropriate time, we can also make sure that your questions get to our panelists who are on the stage, so you can feel that you're a part of this. Also, during lunch, now this is the very exciting part. During lunch, you can go to any of the virtual tables that you want, okay? You can see who the host is. So this, I think, is a fantastic opportunity because you know when you're assigned a table and you're like, darn, I wish I had that table over there. Well, in the virtual world, you can hop to any table that you want. So I love that. So if you see the cool kids over there and you don't like your table, just keep moving. It's going to be so much fun for you. Also, and this is the part that I really like, at any time during the conference, you can shop. See, for these folks here, you have limited amount of time to shop. You have to actually go out to the lobby and shop, but we have these fantastic vendors who will also be offering what they're selling here in person to you online. And for you guys at home, there's also something very special in the fact that there are some extra vendors as well. Now, I have already taken full advantage of everything going on out there, and I have purchased this fantastic hat. This is a keeper. This is from our friends at You Are So Beautiful Boutique at ysbboutique.com. So, photo op? Yeah, I feel that one coming on. Never miss a good photo opportunity. I've always said that. So anyway, you can shop from home, you can participate from home, you can chat from home, you can do just about everything. And please know this as well. We miss you. This is a conference that usually has 2,000 people packed into a ballroom. This year we have about 200. Give it up for the 200 or so that are here. Thank you for being here in person. We're bringing the hybrid together, but we wanted you at home to feel as involved and as connected as we do here because we can feel each other's spirit, and I feel electronically we're feeling your spirit as well. So let's give it up for our people at home that are dressed much more comfortably than we are at the moment. That's okay. I'm double spanked. I'm just going to full disclosure. I am completely double spanked right here. But that's all right. You know, this is how we do it. All right. I am very excited to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Dr. Mihai Song. Now, she is going to discuss the myths and realities of gynecological cancers. How many here in this audience know someone that has had a gynecological cancer? My friend has ovarian cancer right now, and she is battling it. It is real. It is happening. Often these cancers are overlooked or overshadowed, should I say, by breast cancer awareness, because those folks in that arena have done such a tremendous job in public awareness. But gynecological cancers are still a very, very difficult thing to fight, but they are making huge progress in large part because of the woman that you're about to hear from. Dr. Song is the Assistant Clinical Professor of Gynecological Oncology at the City of Hope Medical Center. She is passionate about women's health. She is the embodiment of learning about minimally invasive surgeries as well as complex abdominal procedures. She's an award-winning bilingual doctor. So not only is she a doctor, but she speaks multiple languages. So there's that. She also is eager to bring about new cancer therapies. She is overseeing a number of clinical trials. Please please join me rather in welcoming to the stage Dr. Mihei Song.
Hi, good morning. It's really nice to be here and meet everybody here. I really love the energy and the vibe here. So I just wanted to thank you so much for the introduction. I am Mihei Song, a gynecological oncologist from City of Hope, Department of Surgical Oncology. And I really want to thank the planning committee for inviting me to speak today on a topic that I'm passionate about, gynecologic cancers. And today we want to address some of the myths and realities in gynecologic cancers. We get information from many sources. Where do you get yours? Sometimes I get mine from my family, friends, social media, news, and even Google, right? You Google, why do I have bleeding? What is that discharge? And while some of them may be true, actually many of them may be true, some of them may not be. So today, we want to address some of those common myths about gynecologic cancers. Oh. Sorry, can we have our... Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulties. Oh, there we go, okay. So I don't know about you, but this morning, this is one of the myths that I had to tackle. This is the myth that I grew up believing, that when using an alarm clock, it's the best way to wake up, until you have kids jumping on your bed, and then you realize this truth becomes very real. Waking up suddenly is bad for you. So let's talk about it. But before we can talk about it, we want to be able to name some of the gynecologic cancers. And as you all know, if we can't name the very problems that are bothering us, we can't talk about it openly. So I grew up without really knowing some of the names of my own parts in English. My parents came from Korea and they were telling me in Korean words about how to describe my own body. And as you know, there is some, error in translation. So when I grew up and then went through medical school and I had my own kids, I wanted to make sure they were aware. And I really love little kids because what they actually hear may be a little bit different. Just to give you a little story, my son was 3 when he came to me rubbing his belly, and then I looked at him and said, "Honey, what's wrong?" And he said, "Mommy, my uterus hurts." so then we had to do a little anatomy lesson at that point. And then earlier this year, my daughter, who's 4, and we're doing potty training and a lot of accidents, and but she's succeeding. We were going to the public bathroom, and I said, can you just go? We don't want an accident here. It's COVID. It's going to be really hard. And she finally listened. And, this is a large, public restroom. And then she, goes, she succeeds. She's really proud of herself. And then she goes, "Mommy," in a very loud voice, "Mommy, my vagina listens to you." So I had to tell her, it's your bladder, daughter. But again, these are perks of having a mom who's a gynecologist. So let's go through some of the anatomy ourselves and the cancers associated with them. So it's, let me just here. So as you see here, these are the ovaries and the fallopian tubes on both sides. They're attached to the uterus, and we ovulate every month from these ovaries. And then you look at the uterus, that's also called the womb, and inside is what we call an endometrium, and it's where it holds our pregnancies. And then when you go down, there's our cervix, which is the opening of the uterus, and that's where we collect pap smears. And as you go further down, there's a canal that opens into the vagina, and then that leads to the outside of the body called the vulva. And what we do as gynecological oncologists at City of Hope, I am privileged to work with women from the beginning of diagnosis, because there's cancers that occur in any of these organs. And then I get to perform surgeries in some cases. And then also, as an oncologist, I can give the treatment that's needed. So I'm with them throughout their entire journey of cancer. So what is cancer? How does cancer form? On the left side, you see normal cells. And when some of these body cells kind of grow uncontrollably, it becomes cancer cells on the right side. And then it could spread to other parts of the body. Well, that sounds simple, right? Or not. This is a picture of one cell in our body that has a lot of pathways. I can't even read them here, but all these pathways are very important for our bodies to work. And when some of these pathways stop working or they work too much, it can turn into cancer. So let's address some of these general myths of cancer. How many have you heard or even thought cancer is contagious, especially with COVID, flu? I feel like everything is contagious. So, some people may think that, can I get cancer from another person? So cancer is not contagious. However, some of the cancers are caused by viruses and bacteria that can spread from person to person. And certain types of human papillomavirus, like HPV, have been known to cause cervical, anal, and some kinds of head and neck cancers. And 80% of people will get HPV infection in their lifetime. Another myth, I'm too young, only older people get cancer. Or it doesn't matter that I don't know what type of cancer my relatives have had. After all, cancer is cancer. However, there are a lot of familiar cancer syndromes that occur with GYN cancers. I don't know if you have, especially in ovarian cancers, if you have family members or friends going through it, they may have a syndrome, called hereditary breast and ovarian cancer caused by BRCA1 and 2 mutations. It can cause breast cancer up to 70%, ovarian cancer in 20 to 42%. Lynch syndrome is one of those syndromes that can have an increased risk of colorectal cancer up to 80%, endometrial cancer up to 60%, and then even ovarian cancer up to 40%. And then Cowden syndrome happens in endometrial cancer as well as breast cancer. So this is a family tree down below that your doctor or your genetic counselor may go through with you. And then here you see kind of where it starts from, the affected male, the father who had this, certain mutation that may pass down to their children, that could affect both sons and daughters, and then to their grandchildren. So you see the red where it's affected, it can happen in every generation. So some of us may not know our family history, but it's really important to really just kind of get ideas. When you have Thanksgiving or Christmas, it's not a really good topic to talk about, but I think it's really important to empower ourselves with information that's really important to your health. Another myth that I commonly encounter is, I had a hysterectomy. That means I don't need to see a gynecologist anymore. But you really need to know what kind of hysterectomy you've had. Especially when you were young or, before you went into menopause, you had a hysterectomy. Did they do the total hysterectomy? Did they remove the entire cervix, uterus, ovaries, and tubes, or did they leave the cervix behind? Because that's going to be very important in follow-up as well. Did they remove the ovaries? Especially when you're young, we want to conserve the ovaries. I know the pendulum goes back and forth, take out your ovaries, don't take out your ovaries. And so it's really important to speak with your surgeon about especially which parts were removed. There's also a risk of vulvar cancers and vaginal cancers. So everything still needs to be looked at. So we really encourage, even if you had a hysterectomy, to really go see a gynecologist or your primary physician to do a full exam, pelvic exam. I get my pap smear every year. That checks for everything. Or I got my pap smear last year. I don't need to get a GYN exam this year. So it's really important to remember that a pap smear screens for cervical cancer only. And as of today, it's really not recommended to do it yearly. But that's not an excuse for us not to get an exam every year, because like we said before, it's really important to check out the entire pelvis. Pap smear is only for cervical cancer. For endometrial cancer, there is no screening test. But there is a hallmark symptom that we all should be aware of, which is the postmenopausal bleeding. And then ovarian cancer really has no effective screening test. So let's go a little bit more into detail about specific gynecologic cancers. So we'll start off with ovary. So ovarian cancer, there is a lifetime risk of developing ovarian cancer in about 1 in 75 women. And unfortunately, 60% of women diagnosed are already in stage 3. So they're very advanced when they first present to us. And about 22,000 women are diagnosed with ovarian cancer each year. And we talked about how there is no good effective screening test. Pap smears do not detect ovarian cancer. And although we have a blood test like a CA-125, it can be positive or abnormal in a lot of benign causes. Ultrasound that we use pretty often also cannot detect ovarian cancer as well. So it's really important to be aware of some of the symptoms that we may have. So the myth is, hold on, sorry. Ovarian cancer is a silent killer because it has no symptoms. In reality, there are signs and symptoms, but they're not very prominent, like a vaginal bleeding. So you may have bloating or a pelvic abdominal pain, you have trouble eating, or you're feeling full very quickly, or you have to urinate frequently. You may experience constipation, heartburn, changes in your bowel movement, back pain, fatigue, changes in your menses, or pain during sex. So if you look at all these symptoms, it's very vague, and people may deal with it for several months to years before being able to see a doctor to really address it. So if these symptoms continue for 2 weeks to a month, please, you should see a doctor immediately to really go through the evaluation. Myth: there's a blood test, CA-125, that screens for ovarian cancer. Or I had a normal Pap test last year, it would have detected ovarian cancer. Again, I know I'm kind of repeating it, but really there's no screening test for patients without symptoms. So CA-125 is a blood tumor marker that's helpful once we know that there is a pelvic mass. So your doctors may check your blood to see if there's an increased risk of having ovarian cancer. But it's not even approved for that. We use CA-125 to really monitor response to chemotherapy and ovarian cancer. And again, Pap smear is for cervical cancer only, so the best way to really detect ovarian cancer is to be really aware of the symptoms that you have. Okay, I'm a surgeon, so I really want to address this. Cancer is only curable if you can do surgery to remove it. If you took out all the cancer during surgery, that means I don't need any more treatments. But in reality, surgery is only one of the tools that we have for cancer treatment. We have other things that we commonly use after surgery: chemotherapy, radiation, hormones. You've heard immunotherapy or targeted therapy. So surgery is really just one of the tools that we have in our toolbox to treat cancer. Sometimes surgery is the first thing that we do, or sometimes actually surgery happens after treatment, after chemotherapy, especially in ovarian cancer. And sometimes surgery isn't even the right treatment. Next myth: my ovarian cyst should be removed because it can turn into cancer. All women make cysts before menopause on a monthly basis, and that's where we ovulate from. So most ovarian cysts are actually benign and could go away by itself. So you really don't have to remove it unless you're having symptoms or if they're growing or changing in size. But it's really important to monitor with pelvic ultrasounds, exams, follow-ups. And so whenever there's a change, we definitely want to address it, sometimes with surgery. This is an ultrasound with a cyst that's shown below. Again, I've had a hysterectomy, so I won't get ovarian cancer. They took out everything. There's no way that I could get ovarian cancer. Although removing your ovaries at the time of hysterectomy can significantly decrease your chances of ovarian cancer by about to 95%, there is still a very small, rare chance of developing ovarian cancer, even if your ovaries were removed. So please, if you have symptoms like we discussed before, just listen to your own body. I think you are your own expert of your own body, so it's really important for us to be able to listen to it. Let's move on to endometrial cancer. So at a glance, this is one of the most common gynecological cancers, and estimated new cases this year is about 66,000 women. Estimated deaths is 12,000. I've had no bleeding for 2 years, and I just started bleeding again. Maybe it's my period again. Menopause can happen as early as 40s or really late, and we define menopause as 12 months without bleeding. So if you were 40 and had menopause or early menopause, and 2 years later you had bleeding again, some people may think, oh, I'm just getting my period again. Something must have happened. I was stressed for the past 2 years. But it's really important to evaluate any postmenopausal bleeding. Other common symptoms are unusual bleeding. Let's say you're still having your periods. Maybe you're having bleeding in between your periods, or you have a heavier flow that's been continuing for several months. Or if you have abnormal vaginal discharge, or pelvic pain or pressure, all of these should really be addressed. Another myth is being overweight or obese doesn't put me at risk for getting cancer. For endometrial cancer, if you can memorize HONDA, some of the risk factors include hypertension, obesity, nulliparity, which means not having any pregnancies prior, diabetes, or anovulation, which means you haven't had your period for a while. With that all causes kind of like extra estrogen, which is a risk factor for endometrial cancer. There's nothing I can do personally to prevent getting endometrial cancer myself. But in reality, we all should be following a healthy and balanced diet, exercising regularly. Even though I write this, I haven't done it myself. But it's really important to keep that in mind, having a diet and exercise, really paying attention to your body. There was a study that was done and published in 2017 that looked at a large number of women, and they've shown that women who lost 5% or more of their body weight after they turned 50, their risk of endometrial cancer was lowered by almost 30%. Obese women who chose to lose weight and lost 5% or more of their body weight had an almost 60% reduced risk of endometrial cancer. On the other hand, women who gained more than 10 pounds had a 26% higher risk of endometrial cancer. So all in all, the study really encourages us to really watch our weight because it is a significant risk factor for endometrial cancer. On the other hand, they asked me, eating sugar will make cancer grow. So I should really, stop eating all sorts of sugar. And of course, for me, I really love chocolate, so that'll be really hard. But all cells depend on sugar or glucose for energy. So sugar doesn't really make the cancer grow faster. Likewise, if you deprive cancer cells of sugar, it doesn't slow down their growth. But a high sugar diet may contribute to excess weight gain, and obesity is associated with an increased risk of developing endometrial cancer. Cervical cancer. So HPV vaccination is one of the best things that we could offer to our patients and their families to really prevent. It's the best protection that we have against 6 types of cancers, not just cervical cancer. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, there's a screening test with pap smears and HPV, but a vaccination is something we could offer even before they're exposed to HPV infection. So estimated, cervical cancer cases about 11,000 in the US every year, but we deal with a lot of precancerous cells. So, if you've heard cervical dysplasia or your pap smear comes back a little bit abnormal, your gynecologist, does a biopsy and says, you don't have cancer, but you do have precancer, and it's years of follow-up and treatment. So that affects about 196,000 women a year. And these precancers can also lead to problems during pregnancy. There's 5 other cancers caused by HPV, and there's no recommended screening test for these 5 cancers, so they really wouldn't be detected unless they cause serious health problems. The back of the throat, anus, vulva, penis, and vagina. So really, HPV vaccination is approved and recommended for boys and girls starting at the age of 11 that could prevent over 90% of these cancers. So if anything, we really want to recommend our everybody in our family to really be vaccinated from the age of 11. And for women, it actually goes up to the age of 45. And ideally, we want to get the vaccine before being exposed. A myth, HPV infection will clear up on its own. So cervical cancer is caused by the HPV virus most of the time, and there's more than 100 different types of HPV. And HPV is kind of like the common cold of the vagina. And anyone who's been sexually active has likely been exposed, up to 80% of the people. Although most people will clear a mild virus on their own, untreated HPV infections can progress and cause cancer. So it's really important to know your HPV status when you're getting your pap smears. If the HPV comes back as positive, it's really important to follow that as recommended by your doctor. Cervical cancer runs in my family. We talked about family history and how really important it is to know our history, but cervical cancer is actually one of the gynecological cancers that are not passed on to your children. So pap smear really is the key screening test. A lot of parents come with worries about HPV vaccine. It'll cause my child to be more promiscuous. But no study has actually supported this theory. There was actually a study in 2012 that showed both vaccinated and unvaccinated girls were similarly sexually active. And they're gonna have sex at some point. So it's really important to vaccinate before they become sexually active. And again, boys definitely need to be vaccinated as well. One of the myths is they don't have a cervix. They won't get cervical cancer. So why do boys need to get the HPV vaccine? So these are some of the numbers of new HPV-associated cancer cases each year. So on the left side, you see females. Most common cancer HPV-related is cervix, but it also can affect the vulva, vagina, anus, and the throat. Males, although the numbers are lower, 19,000 compared to 24,000, a lot of them can have HPV-related cancers as well. So the throat is the most common, 81%, anal cancer, and penile cancer as well. So vaccinating the boys help to protect themselves as well as to protect their future girlfriends and wives. So really, herd vaccination is the way to go. So we really went over some of the myths in ovarian cancer, endometrial cancer, and cervical cancer. So how can I tell what's reliable information and what's not? I love Google, I Google everything, but we just want to make sure we can find good information on the web. And these are some of the websites that are out there that specifically deal with gynecologic cancers. Foundations for Women's Cancer, Society of Gynecologic Oncology, SGO.org, Mayo Clinic, City of Hope, but just not Google alone. So I'm gonna end with this. I really want to encourage and empower us to learn, listen, and act. And hopefully after this, you're able to name the 5 gynecologic cancers that we deal with. So listen to the symptoms, learn the symptoms, listen to your body. We really have to take care of ourselves in order to take care of other people as well, and to really act by seeking care. After coming to, So after coming to City of Hope, I love this picture. This is an actual gate at City of Hope campus. City of Hope really continually affirms its vision that really health is a human right. And in that spirit of this remarkable cause and vision, one of the early leaders at City of Hope, Samuel Goulter, coined this phrase, which became our mantra. There is no point or profit in curing the body if in the process we destroy the soul. And I really, truly believe in treating the entire person, body and soul. So I just want to thank you, everybody, for giving me this opportunity. And so I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Dr. Song, how are you? Are you wrapped up? That was fantastic. One more big round of applause for Dr. Song. Dr. Song, I love, come out here for one moment. I love how you basically said, listen to our bodies. I mean, we women, we listen to our kids, we listen to our husbands, we listen to our bosses, we listen to all sorts of things, but how often we just don't pay attention to what's going on inside.
Yeah. No, that's true. I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, and I'm being pulled, right? Especially during COVID, your kids are doing remote learning. That's, I have to be a teacher as well.
You've never lived until you put your kindergarten kid through Zoom school. There's no experience like that. It's unbelievable.
No, so, a lot of times we are the last person to take care of our own selves. No one, we're taking care, like you said, of everybody else. So it's really important to take care of us first. So I really want to encourage everybody.
Thank you. The only time I feel that our bodies really yell at us to pay attention is menopause. I mean, menopause does not shut up. You know what I'm saying? It keeps you up at night. You think you're forget about it, then you start sweating. Why are you nodding? You maybe know someone who has gone through menopause. Anyway, menopause is loud. Everything else is quiet. Once again, Dr. Song, thank you for all the great work you do, especially with clinical trials. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Isn't she wonderful? One thing that I think is so amazing when we talk about female cancers or cancers in general is I once heard someone say, we're always looking for a cure for cancer. Always looking for the cure. Maybe there isn't a cure per se, but maybe there is a way that we learn to live with cancer. and to
How much
learn
will
to
he do?
just.
Put it in here?
Who
Oh,
is talking to? Should someone, God, is that you? I was making a point about cancer. This is why we tell people to stay muted. By the way, thank you all. I wanted to walk out here and thank all of you for being COVID compliant. I know that some people couldn't join us today, like table number 2. They'll be here for lunch. But what I do love is that you all have proof of vaccination when you came in today. So thank you very much. Give it up for the fully vaccinated in this world. Isn't that great? I saw a tweet the other day by Dan Rather. If you follow him on Twitter, he's actually really wonderful. And he said, and I love this, he said, so many people will argue what is the greatest technological advance of our lifetime. Some would say the ATM machine, because really, who's seen the inside of their bank? Some would say it's my computer or my iPhone. And he said, no, the greatest technological advance of our lifetime, of the last millennium, is vaccines. Think how different our life would be, how many people wouldn't be here right now if it weren't for the basic vaccines that we have. So let's give an amen for the vaccines. Can't talk about health without that. All right, let's stretch, shall we? All that talk about the uterus and the ovaries, let's stretch our fallopian tubes. Everybody stand on up. We're going to get some stretching. Elizabeth Ellis, we'll be hearing more from her a little bit later, but she is going to come out on stage. Elizabeth, come on out, girl. Come on out. Oh, look how cute.
Hey.
Look at those leggings. I love
Hi,
those
everybody.
leggings. There is Elizabeth. Elizabeth is going to get us moving, and she's going to get us grooving. Elizabeth, you take it away.
all
Welcome
right.
out, too.
Thank you.
I'm double spanked. I can't.
Okay. I didn't know it was going to dance. I thought it was going to stretch. So while those that are standing up, just move it to any kind of way. Take your arms out, and if you can't take them all the way out, whatever length you can do, you're just going to move those arms, okay? So if you want to go around, just go around nice and gently. Those that can do like this, go faster. Those that can't, go slow. Good job. Good job. Now I want you to flex. You finish? I want you to do this. Those that can do that, if you can't, just whichever you can do. If there's some people sitting in your seat, you can do it sitting in your seat. Everyone seems to be standing up. That's great. That's great. Good job. Now I want you to focus on the waist, and I just want you to decide. Moving your hips though.
the rest of this day. You're looking good. Keep going. 2 more, and we're going to go forward. And the last one, go forward. 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 You should be breathing the first movement. 2 more. Now, if you guys want to dance, let's just dance as we get out. Any kind of way you want to do it, just dance. Come on, we all young people. We've been through a pandemic. Move on. Yeah. I love it. I love what I see. Everyone has. One more one, and I'm gonna do it when we go. Another one, and we can have fun. Just jerk. Just jerk. Yeah. You guys looking good. I love it. Yeah. I want to say thank you guys. I hope this was great. And now you can go on to the rest of your day. Thank you.
How was that? How y'all feeling now? I was going to participate, but I misread the agenda. I thought it said accessorize, and it actually said exercise. So I was not prepared, but you know. Okay. Hi, how y'all feeling now? Good? How are you guys at home? Did you stretch at home? Did you? Or did you watch the refrigerator and then walk back? Because that's technically movement, but that's not the kind of movement we're looking for, unless you're getting yourself a healthy snack. So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid session, our virtual world, and we have something very special coming up now. It's a fantastic panel with a longtime friend of mine is going to be the moderator, Lisa Stevens. Lisa Stevens, I knew her through her Wells Fargo days when she worked there for Wells Fargo for nearly 29 years. She was a child prodigy. She started at just 8, so you do the math. She's very, very young. She's a young woman with a great deal of experience. Lisa is an amazing person, and you're going to love her for how she's going to lead this next panel. This next panel is entitled Empowerment, Taking Control of Your Journey. We're going to have views from women in different aspects of the business world about the impact of COVID specifically on women, how it has changed us, how we have adapted, how we've once again pivoted our lives to work through this pandemic and then work beyond this pandemic. Lisa, if you have not had the pleasure of meeting her like I have, she's really a wonderful, dynamic person that you're just going to love and feel engaged with. She currently serves as Aon's Chief People Officer. That's CPO. I think every business needs a CPO. Can I get an amen for that one? We need a Chief People Officer in all aspects of life. I've long since believed when it comes to business that it's not what a business makes that is their real equity. It's really who does the making, who makes it. It's not the service that the business provides, but it's the people who provide the service. And Lisa certainly embodies that through her work with Aon. As the CPO, she's responsible for creating, implementing, and leading the strategies that empower Aon's employees. And at last count, they had more than 50,000 employees in more than 120 countries. So that is quite an undertaking. That is a lot of people to be the Chief People Officer of. She also leads their Human Capital Solutions business, which provides really powerful data analytics and all sorts of stuff that I'm going to let her get into a little bit more. But without further ado, ladies and you few gentlemen here in our audience, we do love a few good men, right? Let's give it up for the men, the brave men that have come into this conference. Ladies, let's give it up for Lisa Stevens. Hi, Lisa. How are you? You know what? Can I just say, who else has missed hugs? I see people now and I don't know what to do. Do I elbow them? Do I, but one more hug. I'm triple back. You're triple back. Is that right? Great. All right. I'm going to let Lisa take it away and enjoy the panel, and we'll see you in just a little bit.
All right. So I think we should give it up for Wendy, first of all. Pretty amazing. So great to have you here, Wendy, and your energy is absolutely infectious. And also, as we all know, Lena behind the scenes, we've got to let her hear us roar right now. Lena, woo! So I'm really excited for this panel. I was just talking to two of the three women that we're going to be speaking with for the next hour. And I told them that I've been so excited because they have so much to share. I think that we all have in common around what everyone's been dealing with. You're going to hear it today later from Rachel Fellows, who's going to spend time talking about resilience. And she's going to give us a call. Among all of us, I know that we have some cousins that are here today, but we are all sisters. And what Rachel's going to talk about is sisterhood and resiliencehood. How do we come together as sisters and through resilience to really help each other through all the things that we've been going through? And there's no doubt that the pandemic has completely amplified some of the challenges that we've all faced, but it's also shown how strong and how resilient we can be, even if we're not always physically together, but that we're together. I also want to just say that Lena is a groundbreaker when it comes to what's happening today. I know that Wendy said hybrid, we don't want to hear it again, but this is probably one of the first hybrids to take place ever, and it better be on Lena's wiki page, because she is showing people how to do it. So with that, I want to invite to the stage, first of all, from our own Huntington Hospital, the Chief Head of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Pamela Weatherspoon. And Pamela is amazing and has so much to share with all of you, so welcome, Pamela. Also with us physically is Evelyn Martinez from Bank of America. And while I've known Evelyn, just so everyone knows, for over 30 years, which is kind of crazy. We both started when we were 8. I met Pamela this week, and I was just so inspired to get to spend this time with you and for all of us to get to spend time with you. And then joining us from a hybrid place, our Lieutenant Governor, the first woman Lieutenant Governor, Eleni I want to make sure she's there so I can see her. Konalakis is joining us virtually, so I think they're going to pull her up on the screen. Is she coming? Let me tell you a little bit about her while we're getting her on the monitor. For those of you who don't know her, before Governor Newsom appointed her, she spent time as an ambassador to the Republic of Hungary. She published her famous memoirs back in 2015, which was Madam Ambassador, talking about 3 years of diplomacy, dinner parties, and democracy in Budapest. Eleni is also just thrilled to be here today, and when she joins us, we'll have her join in on the conversation, but I think we should get going because we're nimble and resilient, and we'll hope that she joins us soon. All right, so we're gonna kick it off. I just wanna give everyone a quick statistic, and then I'm just gonna be looking right at both of you. But so a recent study by McKinsey, after a year and a half into COVID-19, women in corporate America have made extremely important gains, especially in the C-suite and senior leadership, such as the 3 women that we're talking to. But the pandemic continues to take its toll. 42% of women report being burned out versus 32% last year, and 1 in 3 women consider downshifting. Listen to this, 33% of women consider downshifting their career or leaving the workforce this year. Not good, right? So let's get into it. So Pamela, you have done some pretty amazing things in the last, all your life, but it would be great to hear a little bit about your journey over the last couple of years and the impact that you've been having, taking on diversity, equity, and inclusion at many locations, but now most recently at Huntington Hospital. And then just talk a little bit about what's driven you the last year and a half and some of the things that you've done that maybe have helped you to get through and cope with dealing with this environment and with the pandemic and the lack of connection with people.
Well, thank you, and I feel so blessed to be here. I think I want to step back a little bit more of what drives me to do this work. I grew up in what some might call an at-risk home. So this work that I do around diversity, equity, and inclusion is very personal. And I think all of us could probably acknowledge that the last 2 years have been really difficult. The pandemic has shined a bright light on the inequities that exist in our nation and throughout our entire world. In addition, it's also, within the last year, with all of the work that's been done to progress racial inequities around racial injustice after the murder of George Floyd, has really propelled this work. And I feel a great sense of responsibility to be a part of change. We all know that there is so much need in reducing racial inequities and producing more equity for all of us. And I feel that in this work, especially in healthcare right now, which is, I really feel for a lot of our clinicians and all of us that do this work, we really have to be intentional, right? We know that more brown and Black people have died of COVID than others. And so with that, I feel a great sense of responsibility and feel blessed to be actively involved in creating that change, knowing that that change is impacting, us with my work here in Pasadena, but that change is also impacting the little girls like myself that I was growing up. So it's very personal. I feel blessed to do this work. And I know that with where we are in our nation, which is such a blessing, is more and more people are acknowledging the fact that this work not needs to be done, but has to be done, right? And I get to drive that, and I have to shout out to some of my great colleagues who are here from Huntington Hospital, who are in the community doing the work every day, are great allies and partners with me doing the work. So it's needed, and I feel blessed to be a part of it.
Okay, so I'm going to get you to talk a little bit more about you and some of the things that you do. I do want to give a shout out to Huntington Hospital also, and just say, if it weren't for Huntington Hospital, my mom, we got an extra 7 months with because of the care and love of the doctors and the nurses at Huntington Hospital. During a time when if anyone went through surgeries, we got to go through 3 different heart surgeries in our family during COVID. I can't imagine the work that you've all done at Huntington and the work that you all done, and our healthcare providers dealing with COVID, but then dealing with life didn't stop, right? It kept going. And just so much admiration for the work that you do and the support that you give to our community. So what do you do though, for you, what are some of the things that you do that go beyond, that make you the whole you? Let's give people a little a lens of you.
Well, I would be lying if I said this work was easy. So what really feeds me and helps me stay grounded in this work is I'm a yogi. When I was going through graduate school, I found that yoga really helped me get through that, working full time, going to graduate school, and being a little bit of I would say, an overachiever in some ways. I decided after I finished my MBA to bust out a yoga certification. And so I practice a lot of yoga, and I also teach yoga. Being the person that I am also in believing in equity, I found that when I started becoming a yogi and going to yoga classes, that I was a minority in those yoga classes. And I don't think before I started practicing here locally, did I ever have an instructor that looked like me. And I knew how powerful that would be to have and create the space for other people who maybe don't think yoga's for them, to have somebody that they could, really see themselves practicing yoga. So I've done a lot of work also to bring yoga to those who maybe don't think yoga's for them. But yoga is something that keeps me grounded. Also, what keeps me grounded is being grateful. If we look at statistics, I wasn't supposed to be sitting here right here today, right? I grew up in a family that has had and continues to have a lot of struggles. And so being grateful of what I've been able to do in my life and the fact that I can actually make a difference really keeps me grounded.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. All right, Evelyn Martinez. I'd love to hear a little bit about maybe things that you've done differently now than you did 18 months ago, and then maybe some of the lessons learned, again, that helped you in the last 18 months from what you learned throughout life's wonderful journeys.
Well, thank you, first of all, Lisa, for thinking about me when I got the call. I was very humbled and so appreciative of the opportunity. Lisa actually is, and I was sharing the story earlier. Lisa started me on my leadership journey. She's the one that said, you need to go do this, and because I believe in you, and that means the world to me. This is why I'm here today, is 30 years ago because of this young lady. So thank you for that. Gosh, the last 18 months, let me give you a little visual, if you will, of my household. I have a tribe that lives with me, literally. I have a brother who is 4 years younger, and he's autistic, and he's nonverbal. So when COVID broke out, he was our first concern, because if he can't breathe, he can't tell you. We physically have to see it on him to know that something's wrong. So my brother, my 70-year-old mother who refuses to stay home. So she's very independent, and she would go shopping, and even if we didn't need groceries, she needed to go to the grocery store. She loved going to the casino. So when COVID hit, it was hard to keep her engaged, to stay home and to really talk through the challenges. So there's those two folks, right, which are the biggest risk in my household. And my daughter, who is now 18, 2020 was her high school graduation year. So no prom, no grad night, no fun, right? She got to stay home, and distance learning was really difficult for her. And then there's my 27, now 28-year-old son, who has been diagnosed with bipolar depression. My daughter was furloughed. She was working for Crocs at the mall, and she was furloughed, so now she's home. My son was put on a work from home project, so he now is working from home. And for anybody that knows that kind of diagnosis, it was not a good thing for him to be in a four-wall room all day with his thoughts. So those were the biggest challenges. When I think about personal challenges for me, right, and I think for most of us, it's two aspects really: mental health and financial. So when you think of the mental health piece, is how do I keep myself sane? Because initially I was going out and I could take a break from them for a day when I was going out and in the field, but then I was asked to work from home and not go out in the field anymore. So now we've got all of us under one roof. And so we were driving each other crazy. So how did I keep myself sane? I heard Sisterhood earlier. I tell people I collected women over the last 15, 16 years when I started a group, and we call ourselves the Sisterhood. And so that was my saving grace over the last 18 months, because we would get together, do Zoom sessions, or we would call each other and talk through what challenges, because we all faced very similar challenges, right? Whether you're a parent or a professional, people were losing their jobs and trying to try something different. So that was my saving grace. But with the family, we would do family game nights, or we would go take hikes where we knew there was not going to be a lot of people, so that I could just get them out of the house and keep that mental stability for them. But first I needed to take care of myself, right? When you're on an airplane, they tell you, you've got to put that mask on yourself first. And I've had to learn over the years, because I never put myself first. And it took a mentor of mine to say, what are you doing for yourself? And I've had people ask me that a lot over the years. And I always say, oh, I do this and that. Well, no, that's for other people. What are you doing for you? Right? What are you doing for yourself? So I meditate. I discovered meditation when I was going through a really rough period with my son. And as I was going through the pandemic, that really helped too. So that's what I do for myself, and I've taught my kids to do that. My daughter started to suffer from anxiety because of everything that she was seeing with her brother. So we would literally be somewhere and she would start hyperventilating. So I had to talk her through that and get some therapy, right? I started therapy myself, and I'm very proud of myself for that about a year ago. I got a lot of therapy for the kids, and the kids one day said, Mom, you need therapy too. So, okay. So I started therapy sessions, and we joke about it, because they're like, this is, something will come up and it's a situation. And they're like, oh, that's post-therapy, Mom. So it's mental health is a huge aspect of what we've gone through and what we're going to continue to go through, I think. And it's having dialogue about it helps. Now the financial piece. Financially, now I have a whole household of people with more groceries, electricity, right? That goes up for a lot of families. That was a big concern. So I've got my daughter now that could sleep the day away, and so she's not productive. So, and I had extra bills. My girlfriend, who was a behavioral therapist for special needs children, was laid off 3 times last year. So as a result of that, I said, I've been watching these furniture refurbishing shows. How about we start doing something like that? And they were like, yeah, let's do it. So we went on Facebook, offer up, and we would buy different pieces of furniture, paint it up and change the knobs and resell it at a very nice profit, by the way. And so we started doing that. And my daughter was excited about it because she could be creative. She had something to do now. My girlfriend kept her sane, but we all had a nice extra chunk of change at the end of this. And then we saw other videos of people selling pallets. We're like, what is that? Well, you buy a pallet of different items of people, it's either overstocked or people have returned and they have minor irregularities, and then you sell it. So we started doing that and added that to the profit. And now the most recent adventure, and we have now named our business, it's called Inspired Dreams. Because it came through the inspiration of COVID, and we all now are back to full-time jobs, but we're still doing this because it's been fun and it just adds that extra cash. So now we do customized items, so t-shirts, mugs. So we found that there's a need for that in our community. So my daughter loves being creative with that, and my friend does the sales, and I'm a little bit of the creative director, so we all have roles in this. But it's been a lot of fun, and so that goes back to the mental health, but it also financially has helped us. So that's where I've spent my time over the last 18 months.
I mean, you'll hear a little bit later from Rachel about how mental health, physical health, financial health, emotional health, your community, your relationships, they're all connected. And I just have to say, both of you obviously have figured out some part of the spiritual place for whatever it is, whether it's meditating or yoga, like to feed the soul, right? To feed the soul. But I also just love the fact that we're talking about mental health, and it's not a stigma anymore, and it's something that has to be out there. We have to encourage businesses to do it more, and we all have to be able to do it. So thank you for, talking about that. So I believe, Lieutenant Governor, are you there? Are you there?
Yes, Lisa.
Here you are. Hello. Well, let's give her a big round of applause. So we have already spent some time. Ooh, I'm going to let you go in a second. Talking about your bio, but we would love it if you could share a little bit about things that you've learned as a woman, in particular, going through the last 18 months with the pandemic, and then, of course, in your incredibly important role.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. It's great to be here. I wish I could be with you all in person, but all of this new Zoom technology and the ability to participate virtually at least allows me to be with you this way. I was so inspired. I was listening in to Evelyn and Pamela talking about how they have been kind of coping with the last 18 months. And I was really struck, Evelyn, you talked about being in a multi-generational household. This is what women do. We are so often the glue and the anchors in our families, in our communities, taking on not just our own career work, because let's face it, women working is really not a choice anymore, particularly in California where the cost of living is so high. But then on top of that, we're sort of the go-to people to make sure that we're there to take care of everyone else in the family, and sometimes in the broader community who needs it. So Evelyn, my mother doesn't live with us. She still lives at home, but we were all hands on deck trying to keep her occupied while staying at home and not going to the grocery store and the casinos, two of her favorites too. And really just trying to be there for the people in our lives. And across our beautiful state of California, you see that not just in the professional way, women make up the majority of healthcare workers and the majority of the frontline workers in critical areas like in healthcare and childcare and education and the like, but also that we tend to be still proportionally carry more of a burden of the kind of family duties of parents and children. And then the thing that struck me with Pamela, with what you said, talking about, Lisa, the way that many of us have been from when I was growing up is sort of talking about mental health. I do my fair share of yoga as well and have over many years. And I'll tell you, when I was in the business community and I would sneak off to take my yoga classes, in fact, when I was living in Hungary, in Budapest, and I had to go to yoga classes with an entire security detail waiting outside, it was something that was a little embarrassing, but it was incredibly important to me for my physical and mental health. And now that we're so much more open about everything that contributes to being mentally healthy, it's much easier to talk about these things. And again, I think that women have been on the front lines of really thinking about and pursuing the things that make us just healthier. So I have 2 kids. Again, Evelyn, like you were saying your daughter was a senior. Both of my kids had at least part of their senior year of high school remotely. And then one of them had his first year of college remote. It wasn't fun. It was a little heartbreaking, but at the same time, in our family, we, talked all the time about how important it was to count your blessings and to know that there were so many others disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And then what I always tell my kids, what I tell students who I visit with across the state, I sit as a member of the University of California Board of Regents and the California State University Board of Trustees, and as a Board of Governors member of the community colleges. So I talk to students a lot. They always say the same thing. The most that you can do to get a good night's sleep, to eat healthy food, and to get a little bit of exercise every day, that is a really good foundation to be able to handle the stress and the challenges and the issues that come at you. Now, sometimes, when we think about mental health, it goes way beyond that. But very often for students who get, really just life is sometimes too much to be able to handle the daily stress of it. Starting with that healthy foundation is very, very, very important.
All right. So hopefully it'll stop echoing. There we go. Okay. So thank you so much. And I'm gonna actually go back to you on this next topic, and let's talk about resilience and strategies around resilience and things that we do. And again, taking into account the last 18 months, I will just share a story. My mom suffered from dementia, and later on we found out it was Alzheimer's, and she didn't die from that. She died actually from her heart. But as a 40-something-year-old woman dealing with a mom, and she lived with us up until she passed away. She was wonderful. She was full of joy, just amazing. But when we would go out in public, it was a little bit uncertain. Like, she was really good about talking to strangers and super fun to bring around. But sometimes she'd stare a little too long, or she'd say something inappropriate. But I was in my 40s, and so it was okay. Like, I was like, I'm good with this. Like, I'm not embarrassed by it. This is my mom, and I love her, and and we surrounded her, and she was surrounded by so many people that loved her. Super lucky. So going through the pandemic, she spent all this time with our kids because our kids were home. We have a 22-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 16-year-old. So they got a ton of wonderful time with my mom. The flip side of that is what I woke up to about a year ago was I was lucky enough to get to spend some time with some of my 20-year-old daughter's friends. And one of my daughter's best friend's mom is my age. Her name is also Lisa, and she's 50. And she has early onset dementia. And so this young lady started telling me the story, and I just listened to it about how, people are really mean to her mom, and they're mean to her when they go out in public because her mom says things. It was me, what I just said to you, but it was a 20-year-old telling the story. and not having the tools of how to deal with it, like not having anyone that she could talk to about it. And I think about now, like today, that was March a year ago. I think about where we are today and like how much farther we've come because of that. And so when I think about resilience, I do think part of it is reaching out to people. Like our stories right now, everyone here has a story or two or three or five. But when you get into a situation, it's so much easier. One, when you can talk about it with someone and there's no agenda, but two, when there's support and when there's, and sometimes it's just listening, but sometimes it's saying, okay, so like, here's some things you can do, like to make life easier. But I think there's all these things, you know, everything that happened with George Floyd that was so horrible, there was a spotlight on it and it couldn't be put away because we were all sitting in front of our TVs and sitting in front of our computer screens and looking at our phones, looking at what was happening. And so I think about the world and this whole factor around what do we do to be a more resilient community. And so, so Lieutenant Governor, I'd like to start with you just on when you think about that, what are strategies or things that you've experienced, and you two get a little bit longer, the two of you get a little bit longer, but that have really said this is something maybe I'll do differently, or that I want to recommend to those students or to all of us here in the room right now?
Well, Lisa, you know, you touched on a lot of different things. First of all, I certainly identify with what you went through with your mother. My mother-in-law went through many, many years. My husband's father and mother, and we were very, very close. We're a very close family. And it's been called, Alzheimer's has been called the long goodbye. She was physically very healthy. And so as she became less and less cognitively the woman who we knew, it was just extremely painful for the whole family. And you're right, she's very lucky that she had you and a family to wrap themselves around her. But it's such a difficult thing. And then you also talked about what happened with George Floyd, a completely different, you know, shock to the system in terms of our society, that here we were able to open up our phones and see that something that in Black and brown communities is known to happen, but here the whole world saw it on a tape, a police officer callously, unfeelingly murdering a Black man in front of our eyes. It was the fact that it unleashed an awakening across our country. It was sort of a tipping point. It was everything had led us to this moment where now there was no excuse, there was no denying that these things happen, and that that everybody who saw it wanted it to stop. And so, like many of you, I was out going to marches, recognizing that there are so many men and women of our law enforcement who are incredibly wonderful role models, committed public servants, but that these two things can coexist, that having effective law enforcement, which in a democracy you must have, but also making sure that what happened to George Floyd, that as a society we can root this out and find out what is wrong, that this keeps happening, that these two goals, these two realizations can coexist. And it's been a journey, and it's a journey that has led us to some very significant changes in legislation at the state level as well as at the federal level. Not as much, I think, as we all want to see, or many of us want to see, but we are making progress on that. And that we are aware in our everyday life of systemic ways that we have discounted people because of their gender, discounted voices because of who they are coming from. and that this area of awakening, it is a moment for us to all seize upon and really talk about and think about and look at. And I can certainly tell you that at the state level, the state of California, which has so many of us who are keenly aware of our responsibility to make sure that we do not let this moment pass without real change, that almost every decision that's being made in government at the state level is seen through the prism of the kind of institutionalized racism and sexism that has existed, but also that it is seen through a prism of equity, and that this is not disparaging toward anyone who is, isn't a person of color, isn't a woman, but that what we know is that our society is better and stronger, and all of us are better off when we confront some of the challenges of the past and look toward a future where we are able to treat everyone fairly as they deserve.
Well, thank you so much. And, I think we have to all lean into the need for equity and having courageous conversations, right? And I think that's some of what's helped me be resilient. Growing up and pretty much raising myself, I've just naturally been very independent and like, I got this, I can do this, I don't need help. And what I've found, because I've lived on the East Coast, I've moved in the last 3 years, I've moved twice into communities where I didn't really have a network, didn't have a community, didn't have friends, didn't have family, that I had to be very intentional about making that community for myself and keeping my community and connections with the people that I've been friends with for a really long time, and be vulnerable. I think there's so much power in vulnerability. And I remember having a conversation with one of my longest friends who has a son who's autistic, and her speaking of her struggles, and me leaning in and talking about my own struggles with anxiety, and her being able to finally get some help for her own anxiety. And I think as a leader, us being vulnerable about our, the things that we struggle with helps other people be vulnerable, and, being able to do positive things to cope with the stress, feeling overwhelmed, everything that's happening to all of us. It really makes a huge difference. And I love Brene Brown for that reason. She's really leaned in with that as well. So if anybody hasn't taken the time to get to know Brene Brown and her leadership, and the many books and podcasts and things, that's helped me a lot to really feel comfortable in being vulnerable with the things that I might be struggling with. And when I open up and talk about those things, when people might look at me like, oh, she's got it all together, I'm like, no, I struggle too, and let's talk about it. It helps other people be able to talk about it as well and maybe seek help.
Any Denzel Washington fans in the room? Not only is he handsome, he's smart. I was watching a video, and Denzel will tell you, if you fall 7 times, get back up 8. Right? So resiliency is, and we talk about this with the kids, around what lessons did you learn from that? Because it's very easy, I think, to fall into a victim mentality and say, this happened to me, therefore I'm not going to push forward. It's, what did you learn? Right, from that? Was it something you did, or was there something that you couldn't control? Because that sometimes things happen to us that you can't control. And is there a way out? What's the way out? What's your plan? And come back always stronger. I came to this country when I was 5 years old. I was born in a small Central American country of El Salvador, if any of you know where that is. Tiny, tiny country. And there was no college graduates in my family, so I was the first to graduate from college. And it's been a tough road because I didn't know what to do. My parents couldn't teach me what road to take. So I've been lucky enough to have a lot of folks that have helped me along the way, and that's the networking part, is being, and as I've gotten older, as I said, I've collected women, because it's, we all, if I asked you all, how many of you know an autistic person, or how many of you take care of your elderly mother, or have a college-age child, right? There's a lot of commonality there. And when you share your story with other people, and a very wise person that's sitting to my right said this in a speech, and I don't know if she remembers, but she was speaking at an event, and she said, "You're either teaching or learning." And that was our Hope event where you said that. And so when you share a story with other people, you either teach them something good, right? They take something good away. So don't just share the bad stories, share your wins, share your failures. If you can call it failures, I think failures are just a step in the right direction sometimes. Sometimes you need to fall in a hole because somebody's saying, don't go that way, go that way. Right? So it's what happened to you, learn from it, come out stronger, and then leverage your network. Build a network around you if you don't have one now, because that's the only way that I've been able to survive all these years, and that's how I continue to grow as an individual all the time.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to make sure that the audience that's out there virtually, you can ask questions through the chat. I should have reminded everyone of that in the beginning. And Wendy will be somewhere to let us know what those questions are. And we can also open it up to the audience if there's any questions for this esteemed panel. So I'm going to look out there and see if there's anything. And Wendy, I know you'll yell at me if there's something on the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you guys more questions. But anyone out there have something they're curious about? And oh, there we go.
Share that there's hope out there. The name of the program, the name of the program is called Recode. If you just Google on your phone, Recode Protocol, it's going to come up. It's right over at UCLA. Yeah, I did this in 2013. RECODE, Recode. And the success rate is about 76% of people that recover. When it happened to my dad in 2013, I just started researching because I had what you would call a come to Jesus meeting. I said, God, you said that you're the God of all flesh. You said that you heal all diseases. You said that there's nothing too hard for you. Now, Western medicine says that the brain can't be healed. Western medicine says we can address heart issues, we can heal the lungs, we can heal the liver, but no brain? You forgot about the brain? That was a problem for me. So I began my own independent research before there was anything published. And the one thing that I realized was I had to start with diet. Sugar, wheat, and carbs destroy your brain, period. A high diet of sugar, wheat, and carbs will destroy you. So the first thing I did was to get on board with that. Then I found a website called functionalmedicine.org, where doctors in this country that have been Western trained got sick and tired of their patients not getting well. After giving them drugs and whatever, they still had the same illness. So they realized that they were only managing symptoms, but not getting to the root cause. So I connected with a neurologist and I said, my father's gonna get his brain back. He's the only daddy I've ever had. I love him to pieces. And it's my turn to step up and do something for him, because all he's done was give me what I wanted. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I think that's a great question, and Lieutenant Governor, hopefully you're still there for the panel, and I'll set you up and you can think about this for a second. So
Lisa?
thank you so much for sharing that story.
Do you mind? This just in. Breaking news. We have a question from our chat room.
Oh, okay.
So this just in.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that and for fighting and not flying away. So thank you. All right, Wendy.
Sorry. Breaking news. I interrupted you there. I apologize. That's what you do with breaking news. You say this just in. This question just came in. It says, how are you, our panelists, and people that you know dealing with the learning loss that many students in many, many communities statewide experience during the long COVID virtual-only learning period?
So should we start with Lieutenant Governor? Because I can tell.
I believe so, Lieutenant
Sure.
Governor.
Well, I'm happy to talk about it. First of all, it's real. The learning loss is real, and it's just one of the tragic side effects of the global pandemic. Teachers who were heroic during this time, scrambling to organize their online courses, because as we know, the transition in California to online learning for our public schools went very rapidly, very, very difficult. We have students across the state who don't have computers. They were sharing smartphones. They don't have high-speed internet. The internet was going out. Very, very difficult. And those moms and dads who had to step in to help support their kids, those, again, heroic teachers who did everything they could to make their virtual classroom productive and positive. But it was a very difficult time. And let's not forget that a lot of what goes on with student learning happens on the playground, and it happens because they're physically together. So this was a real challenge. And now, as our students are back in the classroom physically for the most part across the state, and again, there's provisional approval for vaccines now for children under the age of 12. I think it's 5 to 12, but I would double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's the age. That's an extra protection. If parents are ready to go have their children vaccinated, of course, the state is encouraging it. We required vaccinations for our teachers to go, and all of our educators back in our schools in order to keep them safe and keep our educators and our children and their families safe. So this has been, in my opinion, the single most difficult challenge in California and in the country, is keeping our kids mentally healthy and able to learn. But yes, the learning loss has happened. It is real. And now we have to do everything possible to make up for it. So There are a couple things. One is we had a record state budget this year, a $75 billion budget surplus. We've been able to allocate more resources to our schools, not just to keep them people physically safe, as I mentioned before, but also with additional resources to deal with learning loss. And in our public higher education, and this is an area where I tend to focus the most, we are, we were able to really ramp up with access to computer technology to be able to learn remotely, and certainly again with being able to use the resources to make sure that we had ample classes and classrooms for students as they come back in. But one of the key things, this is actually what I was meant to say, one of the key things that has happened in public higher education is that, right at the very beginning, it was clear that students applying to college would not be able to take the SATs or the ACTs, these standardized tests to go to college. And so the University of California very early on suspended the requirement of the SAT for admissions. And what this really did was sped up the recognition that our admissions process can move forward very effectively without the SAT and some of these other standardized tests. So I think that we have been very adaptable in our public higher education system during COVID and in education in general, but recognizing that there has been learning loss and that we have to really double down in making up for it. That is what is the main focus as we go forward in getting our students back into the classroom.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. And the other thing, I think it goes without saying, but the loss of learning also, it created more inequities. And so that's a reality I think we all know. And so how we put our focus and attention, both as corporations and as volunteers and everything else, is how do we help in the areas, because of the people who didn't have access, as you said, to the online tools or to computers or the things that they needed. It was, and I know we all know them, but the teachers that were out there trying to figure out how to get assignments to their to the children when they didn't have that opportunity to do the face-to-face it was hard. So we only have a few minutes left, and I was hoping that all three of you could do something, which is if you could think of one wish or one piece of advice that you would like to give to our viewers that are out there sitting in soft pants. I'm still wearing soft pants, Wendy, by the way. I refuse to get into anything that doesn't have an elastic waistband. If you could give one wish or one piece of advice that you'd like all of us to hear as we move forward in this, journey that we continue to be on in life, and the curveballs that we know that it throws us, and all the amazing opportunities it gives us too.
The first thing that comes to my mind, it's very simple, is give yourself grace. It's been a tough 2 years, and we all have overcome so much. And I think sometimes, especially as women leaders, we push ourselves so hard, and we're so hard on ourselves that it's important to give yourself a little grace and know that you're great, and that, every day is different. Always do your best, and every day is going to be different. So give yourself some grace.
So I have two. The first one is take care of you, because it's really easy, again, with everything that's thrown at us, to forget about us. And even if it's alone time, I like being alone. And people ask me, well, why do you like alone time? Who do you talk to? I said, myself. I just need that time for me to reflect and recharge. So take time for yourself, whatever that is, whether it's a class or it's just meditating or it's going for a walk. And then the second thing is build a network for yourself with the intention of giving. When you give, you get back, and use that network to share your stories, because you'll help somebody, or you'll get help for yourself from somebody who can give you resources to help you with your predicament.
Lieutenant Governor.
So I think grace and being kind to yourself and building those networks, I think that is all really, really good advice. It's been said before by the other panelists. It's already come up, but I think that word persistence is really important because it acknowledges that that everyone is going to have those bumps in the road, and that it's sometimes, you know, looks like some people look so easy, but everyone, in my opinion, every woman I know who has done really, you know, fulfilled their dreams has been persistent and had those moments where they feel like giving up and they feel, you know, other people make them feel small. And to shrug that off, to shake it off, sometimes you can maybe do it quickly, sometimes it may take a few days, whatever it is, to be able to meditate on that word persistence. Know that it's not that it's easy, but that is always the pathway forward.
Thank you. Fantastic. So, Pamela, I'm going to put you on the spot as we end. And I know I only met you a few days ago, but I have to do this. So first of all, I would just say, and Lena does this better than anyone, which is be a joy maker, be the person that brings joy. But most of all, being kind. Can you show us your arm?
Yes, I do have a tattoo, and because the work that I do a lot of trainings, and I end my trainings a lot of times that, you know, doing this work around diversity, equity, and inclusion can be as simple as being respectful and kind. And so I got a tattoo of a bee and kind on my arm.
Be kind. So easy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give it up for our panelists. I just want to say that one of the things I like to do too is do a little shopping. Ladies, it's about time. This is from Hannah B. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling all of it because you know what? We finally have a place to go. So here's what's happening. You all are going to have an amazing lunch where you go to network. You get to talk. That's basically what we're saying. For our friends at home, how are our friends at home? How are you guys doing in there? You can shop too by going to the green room. And you ladies can shop by going out to our fabulous vendors. But may I, for one moment, let's bring the music down just a little bit. I have been told that there is an amazing woman in this audience right now. Where is Ruby Lee Jones? Where is Auntie Ruby Lee? Auntie Ruby Lee, how are you? I am told that Ruby Lee Jones is 103 years old. Ruby? Hi. How are you? 103. I don't believe it. You don't look a day over 102, honestly. Are you kidding me?
The Lord has blessed me.
Well,
with
amen.
Good food, good men.
Let's give it up for Ruby Lee Jones. You guys have a fantastic lunch. Enjoy yourselves. We'll all be back in about 45 minutes, so be sure to enjoy yourself, network, shop a little bit, and we love our online audience. Stay